Welcome once again to Church Ephesians 6:4, and we are reading Christian Behavior by John Bunyan in modern updated English, done by modernpuritans.com. Chapter 4, For Bosses to Employees. Masters also have responsibilities in their relationships with their servants. Firstly, if it's possible, try to surround yourself with those who respect God. As David said, "He who practices deceit will not live in my house, and he who tells lies will not stay in my presence." Psalm 101:7. Secondly, but if at the moment you can only find non-believers to do your work, then 1. Understand that it is your responsibility to treat your servant in such a way that not only benefits you, but also benefits them both physically and emotionally. Therefore, treat them with the same respect and guidance as you would your own children. Share with them the same spiritual nourishment that you provide for your children. Who knows? If you nurture your servant with spiritual wisdom, they might eventually become like a spiritual child to you, as suggested in Proverbs 29:21. 2. Be careful not to overwork your employees out of greed, turning them into slaves. Making people work extremely hard is more akin to the enemies of Israel than to Christian employers, as mentioned in Exodus 1:14. 3. Be careful not to behave toward your servant like the person described as a son of Belial, who was so terrible that his servants couldn't even speak to him. 1 Samuel 25:14-17. The apostle urges you to refrain from threatening them because you too have a master in heaven. Ephesians 6:9. In other words, your servants can't possibly make as many mistakes against you as you've made against Christ. So treat your servants the way you'd want your master to treat you. 4. Be careful not to trick him when he starts working for you or when he leaves your service. 1. When starting their jobs, servants can be deceived in two different ways. Firstly, their bosses are deceiving them by claiming that their work is minimal and easy, when in reality, it's quite the opposite. Even if it's not overly burdensome, it's definitely more than what was initially described. This is a clear case of misleading them. Secondly, another approach is when bosses, driven by greed, try to manipulate their employees into accepting wages that are really too low for the amount of work and efforts they're putting in. The apostle challenges both these situations, saying, "Bosses, give your employees what is fair work and fair wages, knowing that you too have a boss in heaven." Colossians 4:1. 2. Just as workers can be tricked when they start their jobs, they can also be deceived when they leave. This can happen when employers change their wages, similar to the unscrupulous Laban from Genesis 31:7. Or by withholding their pay, like those who God promises to swiftly judge in Malachi 3:5. 3. Be careful not to exploit your position just because you're likable, or because you live in a place that makes it easy for you to receive blessings. Truly religious servants don't mind how little they're paid, as long as they can work in religious households or places where they can conveniently practice their faith. However, if a boss or employer takes advantage of this situation to exploit their servant, that's terrible. It's like profiting from religion and trading in spiritual matters, 1 Timothy 6:5, and exploiting your fellow human being. I've heard some unfortunate employees mention that in some non-religious households, they've had more freedom to practice their faith and experienced more honest treatment than in the households of religious scholars. But this situation is really terrible. Just like Jacob commented on the brutality of his two sons, I can say the same about these kinds of employers. They make religion look bad to the rest of society. In short, learn from the Lord Jesus how to treat your employees well, so that they too can experience the kindness of Christ through your behavior toward them. Remember, employees come and go. Be careful not to give them any reason to speak ill of the gospel when they leave, based on any unfair actions they may have witnessed while working with you. Masters are doing right by their servants when they work hard, both in their speech and actions, to make them understand that God's matters are the most important thing. In terms of what servants are instructed to do regarding their respect, their sincerity, their actions as if they were for the Lord and not for people, the master is also instructed to do the same things for them, as mentioned in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 6 through 9. Thank you for listening. See you next chapter.